Welcome board wizards, Commander Visitrex here with a new deck build. Today we are going to focus on a life swap deck using Varric Warped Singer as the commander. First, let's go over some of the deck objectives. We are looking to keep everything around power 7 to 8, games lasting around an hour with a 4-player game. Our primary objective is to be unpredictable. We want to keep our opponents on our toes. Nothing is more boring to me than sitting down and knowing exactly what my opponent's strategy is based off of their commander. I like to keep things weird. We're not going to be running any mana rocks with positive mana production versus their cost. That's going to be Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, things of that nature. We also won't be using any of the lands that are also going to produce positive mana, with the exception of lands that have conditions. This is just me personally. Feel free to change the deck yourself, but I don't ever find that those enhance my gameplay, especially for the cost most of these cards have. Now, I personally do not run any tutors. Commander is supposed to be a casual format, and that means that you get what you get, and you only get one card of each type. In my personal opinion, a tutor is going to artificially give you 2 of any card that you want. The exception to this, obviously, is any lands, because ramping is fun. My main objective whenever I build a deck is that everybody gets an opportunity to play and enjoy the game. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to make them suffer while they're having fun. That just means that I want them to feel like they were able to contribute to the game. And then obviously we want to keep things reasonably affordable. That is going to vary from player to player, the definition of affordable, but for me that's going to be less than $600, and ideally somewhere between $300 to $600. And then because I'm bad at Magic, I'm always going to include at least one card that can borrow from my opponents, because I assume that they're better at the game than I am. Pros and cons to the deck. The ramp is absolutely explosive, and we'll go over that as we go through the deck review. We're going to have lots of interaction, so if you're somebody who likes to play referee, you are going to have the ability to tell your opponents no frequently. The deck itself is a psychological terror. We are playing a life swap deck, so most opponents don't know how to interact with you at all. Do they attack you? Is attacking helping? Do they not attack you? Do they sit back and hope that they can one-shot you? It's absolutely hilarious to watch people try to figure out exactly how they're supposed to play around you. The deck is incredibly versatile and resilient. There is a lot of recursion. There's a lot of interaction, as I mentioned before. This means that each game is going to be a little bit different than the last, and it is extremely fun. As for the cons, you are often going to kill yourself. Now, this actually can be a pro in and of itself. Watching your opponent's faces as you drain your own life and then accidentally kill yourself because you were unable to find the cards that you needed is somewhat entertaining in its own right. And then the other con is that the fetch lands are unfortunately rather expensive. In total, we're looking at about $220 in fetch lands. Okay, on to the deck review. We are going to use Moxfield here. There will be a link in the description. The first card that we have here is obviously the commander. Now, the way that he functions is whenever you have an activated ability that is not a mana ability, so nothing that's going to tap and add mana that costs life, it is going to copy the trigger. This does not include spells. This is important to keep in mind. So things like Knight's Whisper, which is going to allow you to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, does not get duplicated. This is permanence only. First, we're going to go over the card advantage life drain cards. Now, these are super beneficial in draining your life, and as deck with no tutors, we need as much card draw as we can to get through the deck. The first one is Ad Nauseam. This card is on the higher end of the power scale for cards that I generally want to play. We're going to have 2 or 3 of these in the deck, but because you're drawing into them instead of tutoring, I generally let those slide. This is a bit of a gamble card, but we are going to draw a ton of cards with that, and we are going to reduce our life total quite a bit. Next, we're going to go to Argol's Bloodfast. Anything that's going to allow us to pay life and draw cards is going to be phenomenal on this deck, and because of our commander, we are going to copy all of these triggers. Same with Blood Tracker. Blood Tracker is going to be a phenomenal card in terms of a potential blocker and game ender, and if for any reason somebody board wipes or he gets removed, you are going to draw a ton of cards. Bolus's Citadel, Ad Nauseam, basically an artifact. We're going to be a little bit less of a gamble here because we get to choose. And the thing that I do like about Bolas' Citadel is your opponents do have an opportunity to respond to the card. So if you spend the mana to cast it, it's not a big deal. Erebos is actually an extremely important card in this deck. Now, generally speaking, a lot of people are going to be playing life gain decks in Commander. I'm not sure why. It is an extremely popular archetype. There are decks that can gain an absurd amount of life, up into the thousands. Now, if we swap with those players, it's going to be almost impossible to drain our life enough to get it back down to the point where we can try to swap again. So Erebos is a really good card for that. And then because of the activated ability, our Commander will copy that. We are going to lose life twice for 2 mana. So 4 life, 2 cards. Very good. Vecna, same thing. We're going to be drawing cards, losing life. Drawing cards, losing life from Greed. Night's Whisper is a sorcery which is going to drain our life a little bit, give us some card advantage, but again, like Read the Bones and Sign in Blood, we are not going to be able to copy those triggers. Street Wraith, the cycling ability, is going to get copied because it is an activated ability. So we are going to lose 4 life, draw 2 cards, and with the amount of graveyard recursion that we have in this deck, we are going to be able to put him back in play or put him back in our hand relatively consistently. Underworld Connections, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards when our commander is on the field, and then Villas is just going to draw an absurd amount of cards for us. Now, given how much we're going to be losing life in this deck, we do need some defense. There are some phenomenal cards. Split Second, our opponents cannot respond. We are not going to lose the game on the off chance that we're riding the edge of that 1 to 2 life range a little too closely. Children of the Coreless is going to give us the opportunity to regain any life that we may have lost. Crypt Incursion is going to give us some emergency life gain. Ink Shield is going to be a phenomenal card where we can prevent combat damage and potentially give us a win condition on the back end depending on how many creatures were swung at us. Kami the False Hope is going to fog. Peacekeeper is going to tell our opponents outright that they cannot attack, which is going to be exceptionally beneficial when we're trying to kill ourselves. Righteous Aura, pay 1 white, pay 2 life, or in this case, if our commander is available, we may pay 4 life for 1 mana, and prevent any damage from 2 sources. Riot Control is going to fog as well as give us some emergency life gain. Spoils of Evil is going to give us a big burst of mana if we need it, as well as a good amount of life gain. Stunning Reversal, just like Angel's Grace, is going to say that we do not lose the game. Sudden Spoiling is a very good card, and it is one that is very hated by a lot of players, especially when they're about to win and you tell them no. And then Tainted Sigil is a fantastic way to gain a lot of emergency life. If an opponent swung out at multiple people and was able to do a ton of damage, you can gain an insane amount of life back with this card. As for our game finishers, now the way that this deck works is whenever you swap life, say hypothetically your opponent had 60 and you had 2, you are going to go to 60 and your opponents are going to get reduced to 2. With Archfiend of Despair and Wound Reflection both on the field, the cards are going to trigger. They're going to see your opponents losing 58 life, and then they are going to lose an additional 58. So with either of these cards in play, it is basically target player loses the game when you decide to swap. Repay in Kind is absolutely one of the best finishers in this deck. Each player's life total becomes the lowest among all life totals, and yours is going to be around 1 to 2. I can't tell you how many times playing this deck that I have managed to kill an opponent just by swinging with my commander, as silly as that is. And then Veto, whenever we gain life, which we will every time we swap, we are going to be able to shoot another opponent in the face. Always a good time. As far as the land suite goes, we're going to be running 28 lands. Nothing really special to see here. We do run 1 dual land in order to be able to fetch either a plains or a swamp in case we need it. Relative amount of dual lands, fair amount of basics, and then obviously Reliquary Tower because we are going to be drawing an absurd amount of cards. Now on to the meat and potatoes of the deck itself, the life swaps. We do have 1 enchantment and 1 artifact that's going to give us the ability to life swap every single turn so long as we have the mana. And we always will because this deck ramps like crazy. And granted, our opponents do have the ability to respond to either one of these, but that's kind of what we want. Magus of the Mirror is a little bit slow, but functions relatively well. And then again, with the amount of recursion that we have, we are going to be able to return him multiple times if needed. Profane Transfusion is going to allow us to swap life totals and create a massive creature, which could potentially win us the game, and Reverse the Sands is just a really funny card with Wind Reflection out. As for the general life drain strategies or additional life drain strategies, Black Market Connections is going to be able to ramp us, draw us a card, and create potential blockers. Now keep in mind, because this is not an activated ability, your commander's ability will not trigger to copy these, but being able to lose that much life in one turn, a total of 6 each turn, is very good. Chainer is going to be our one card that allows us to steal things from our opponents, because I assume that they're going to have better creatures than I will, and it's going to allow us to steal those and potentially use them against our opponents as a game ender. Because he is an activated ability, we will be able to copy that, so for 3 mana and 6 life we can put 2 target creatures into play. Very good. Glasscast Heart is going to allow us to create some potential blockers and then potentially kill the entire table if we create enough of them. Phyrexian Reclamation and Purgatory are going to be our go-to cards as far as enchantments to recur creatures. Now, Purgatory, honestly, I added just because it's a hilarious card and most people have to read it multiple times. So for 4 mana and 4 life, we can put any 2 creatures that have died back into play. Priest of the Fell Rites is going to pay 3 life, sacrifice him. Again, our commander copying this ability, so 6 life, and we get to put 2 creatures back into play. Very sticky creature base. Now, as to the reason I chose Varric for the commander, this is the primary reason. The first time I read Varric, I thought it was kind of an interesting card, and then it occurred to me that your fetch lands trigger twice. By tapping, paying 2 life, you get to go fetch 2 basic lands with every single one of these fetches. This is going to be the meat and potatoes as to how we're ramping so hard. So generally speaking, our main goal is going to be able to get 3 basics in play. So turn 2, possibly turn 3. Cast our commander, and then on turn 4, go straight up to 5 lands. My favorite part about this is every time you do it for the first time, everybody at the table is going to go, wait, what? And then reach for your commander. So keep it readily available because they're going to need to read what your commander does again once you do this. As for our ramp suite, you have your basic Arcane Signet. These 2 are actually hilarious to me because you get to play them, sacrifice them, and then recur them, allowing for a surprising amount of Black Burst mana. Crucible Worlds and Sarah Paragon aren't normally considered ramp in a deck. However, in our deck, because we get to copy the triggers for our fetch lands twice, anytime we have either of these in play, we are going to be ramping our decks off. Much to the detriment of your opponents. Forsworn Paladin is going to be able to drain our life a little bit more and then create treasure tokens. We can also sacrifice treasure tokens and give a creature a little bit of a buff. There are a few times that this comes in handy, especially if somebody is attacking us and we need some emergency life. Because our commander does have lifelink, we can recur some of that. And then Thought Vessel, because of the sheer amount of cards that we're going to be drawing, is just a good mana rock. And thanks to Commander's Quarters, as always, Wayfarer's Bauble needs to be in the deck. With the amount of life drain that we're going to have, it is going to be important to have a good amount of removal. So we have several creatures, Bounty Agent, Carthar's Commander, that are going to be able to remove specific things that are causing problems for us. Cruel Sadist is going to be able to pay life, and then we can remove those 1/1 counters to deal damage. You have your Dam, Board Wipe, always good. Spot Removal, and then Font of Agonies is actually going to be one of the best cards in this deck, because every time we pay life, which we will be doing frequently, we can remove counters from it and destroy creatures. In most games, I am going to have 12 to 16 counters on this card pretty much the turn after I put it in play. It's an incredible removal engine. Force of Despair, just in case of emergencies. Necrotic Sliver is going to be fairly similar to Cathar Commander and Bounty Agent. We're going to be able to sacrifice this permanent to destroy any other target permanent. And then with the amount of recursion that we have in play, it's just a phenomenal card. Sister Concoction, we are going to have to discard only 1 card. We are only going to have to mill 1 card, but we are going to be able to destroy 2 creatures for paying 1 black mana and 2 life. Anytime I can pay life to recur any removal, that's just going to be an absolute win, so this is a phenomenal card in this deck. And then you have your general Swords to Plowshares, Snuff Out. Tendrils of Corruption is going to act as removal and potentially some emergency life gain. And then Sabo's Decree, because I hate tribal decks. but that's just me personally. Total cost for the deck is going to be around $561. That's what Moxfield is estimating. In actuality, you'll probably be able to purchase it for somewhere closer to $500. I usually purchase my cards from TCG. They're a little bit cheaper than Card Kingdom. I'm going to be honest with you guys though, $220 for 8 lands is a lot. I'm not a purist, so I understand that sometimes proxies are needed. I understand the arguments for both sides, but if it'll help you purchase this deck, obviously, you know, it's up to your play group, but I don't have any issue with proxies. That would probably bring the deck cost to closer to $300. Link in the description down below to this Moxfield if you would like to purchase the deck. Enjoy tormenting your friends, and as always, have an amazing day. Thank you for watching.